Guys, all the cars that you see in these videos are for sale on my website, www.woodsandbarclay.com. Enjoy the video. Hey guys, welcome back to part 3 in the video series on the 1979 300 SD, the Panther. Today we're going to go through the climate control system. Now, you always hear that one of the weak spots or weaknesses of the 116 chassis is the climate control. Guys, that is absolutely not true. People that say that just don't understand how to make the climate controls work correctly. The climate control, basically it involves a servo that's under the hood, an amplifier that's behind the glove box liner, and then your control wheel, your temperature dial, that's in the driver's compartment. Now, the two failure areas are that climate control servo and the amplifier. And on every 116 I get in the shop, I install a brand new climate control servo, and then it'll be good for the next decade. You don't have to worry about it again. I also go and test the amplifier that's in the glove box. And if you test your amplifier, make sure it's working correctly, it's going to send a signal to that servo to operate correctly. Once you knock out those two items and that's working correctly, these have better climate control systems than 123s and 126s. They work better, they respond better, the temperature dial works better, and they're more reliable. So don't believe what you read on the internet about bad climate control systems on the 116s. Anyway, let's go ahead and dive into the video. Okay, so let me explain the climate control servo. Here's your vacuum lines that run in from the the inside of the vehicle from the climate control system, just like 123s. Mercedes has all the vacuum lines. Really not a lot of difference there. They run to the vacuum pods behind the dash. So this is your climate control servo. Now I can see when the AC was redone on this car, they did install a new one. However, this was just a good used working one. I don't like to do that. What I like to do is call MB1 Diesel. You can call Chris out there, mb1diesel.com, I think it is. And he completely disassembles, completely rebuilds these units, and they're extremely good. He also uses stainless steel screws, and because one of the weaknesses of these units, this is what they would call like a Bakelite material. It's very similar to plastic. It's like a very hard plastic. And what happens here, coolant is running through this, and there's a servo that opens up valves, and it allows more or less hot coolant to flow into the system to regulate your heat and air. And right down here along the base, you will get over 15, 20 years or however long, it will get a small crack in this Bakelite material. And then coolant will start dripping out, the internals will start leaking, and they stop working correctly. Really, it's not a big deal. You can pick these up for, gosh, I think these are $400 or $500, completely rebuilt. They're outstanding condition. And I did this on my own personal 116, and once you replace these, I mean, you're good for the next decade or more. And the point about the stainless steel screws is we suspect a lot of these original ones crack because they have regular, not stainless steel screws. And when a little corrosion gets on those screws, they will, expand just a little bit. And when that little bit of expansion causes little micro fractures to appear, and they leak. So out at MB1 Diesel, you can see all of the screws used in here. They're all stainless steel, which will not corrode and rust. And it's all assembled correctly. There's, original part numbers. And these are just fantastic units. So before we swap this out, we're going to go inside the car, and I'm going to show you the next component, and that's the climate control servo amplifier, which controls the behavior of this servo. All right, guys, I'm in the car. Let's get this change out of here from the previous owner. 10 cents off my purchase there. Now, the first thing I noticed is the glove box light was out. So I went ahead and put a new bulb in there. There we go. So we have a replaced bulb. But what we want to do is remove the glove box. See the little clips right here? These all pop out, and there's a couple right up top here. And we're going to remove the glove box, and I will show you the amplifier, which is located right there. Okay, before I put in our replacement amplifier, I want to test this one, because if this one's good, I don't want to mess with it. So I have a voltage meter connected to pin 1 and pin 7, and the ignition is in the on position. And now when I roll this climate control temperature potentiometer, I should see the voltage fluctuate. There we go. Look at that. All right, let's go all the way down. Nice. Now let's slowly roll it back up, and we should see it. Yep, there we go. Starting to react, coming up, and it should go up somewhere around 5. There we go, 5, 4, 6. So actually, this climate control amplifier is working perfect. I'm not going to install this one because I like the way this one's working. This is in very, very good condition. So let's go ahead and turn off the car. The next thing we're going to do is, if you look right, see that foam? Okay, you see this tube right here? You see how there's a tube over there? That is to read your temperature. The air flows through there and through that tube. And what Mercedes would do is they would put this foam insulation that connected those two tubes. You can see it right here. If you have a 116, guys, and you've never done this, you absolutely need to do this. There we go. See that foam? It's the same on the 123s, the same on the 126s. It's all the same. You have to replace this foam tube because it deteriorates. And there we go. We're just going to pull out that old deteriorated foam tube. There it is. There we go. See, it's actually pipe insulation. It's a foam tube. And we're going to install a replacement new foam tube that, there we go, that reconnects that tube, and that will allow, let me get that piece off there, that will allow the temperature to come down through here and feed into the climate control system. You see it goes down in there, and that's how the system knows to adjust based on air temperature and ohms resistance on this wheel, how it knows to adjust more heat or more cool, or lower the fan speed or raise the fan speed. If that foam tube is deteriorated, your temperature signal cannot get to the climate control system. I have the tube replaced. You can see right there. There's our tube. So we now have that replaced so the climate control can correctly read the temperature. Just wanted to show you guys what the tubing is you can use to replace that tube under the dash. 1/2 inch copper or 3/8 iron, 12.7 millimeter or 9.5 millimeter. Those are the specs you look for. That's the size. And here's what this stuff looks like. You just pull it out of here. And there we go. It's just pipe insulation. And that's almost identical to the stuff that Mercedes used. I've unplugged the main vacuum lines. Now this is just a plug that plugs into the back of the servo, and there's one screw right here that I just took out. Here it is right here. See, they plug into the back, and then your power connections and control connections go down there below it. And there's where the screw plugs in right there. So I took that screw out, and I've also, you can see I've also underneath it unplugged the power connections. Now I just need to get these, that's a crusty old hose clamp there. I'm going to replace those. I need to unscrew here, here, right there, and there's one right back. There it is. You can barely see it right there. I got to unscrew those hose clamps because those are the hoses. They connect to these two ports and these two ports. So let me do that. And then on the back of here, to mount it, I think these are 8 millimeter, two 8 millimeter bolts, which are, we've supplied with new stainless steel ones from MB Diesel 1. It's mbdiesel1.com, by the way. So we'll remount that one. So let me work on that. Okay guys, I'm just working on the last hose here. There we go. Now I can get access to the vacuum line that's underneath. There's a black one and a yellow one. There we go. And there is our crusty old climate control servo. Now I actually don't see any cracks in this housing. Oh, there we go. There's a little, there we go. You see that? There's a little crack in the housing. That's what happens on these things. And that little bitty crack will cause a little bit of coolant to drip out. And even though this one was replaced, it looks like it was replaced years ago. I'll show you a different one that I have. Here's one that the crack had started forming even worse. There you go. See that? So once we put in our new one, it's going to be good for a long time, because these actually will last a long time. These are just old original ones. Okay, before we put our new servo in, there's one more component we want to test. This is the auxiliary water pump. So this kicks on and it can pump hot coolant through your engine. They usually kick on when you're like at idle and there's not enough coolant flow, and they provide like backup auxiliary water flow through the system. And we'll just unplug the 12 volt to test it. And we just want to bump it for a second, make sure it's still good. And on a low mileage vehicle like this, it's 99% of the time it's going to be fine. They last a very long time. Okay, see if you can see if you guys can hear this. I'll try to crank up the volume on the video. Okay, so that one works great. No problems there. But what we want to do is lubricate it so it will continue to work for a long time. Now you see there's a little cap right here. That's where the little axle goes down through the motor. And just take a little screwdriver. You can pop off this protective cap, just like that. And we want to put some oil down in here and lubricate that axle. This stuff works great. This is just old school 3-in-1 household oil. And we're going to put a few drops right down in there, just like that. And then we're going to put our cap right back on there. There we go. That will now be lubricated. And I'll run it one more time here. All right, there we go. So that thing is serviced, and that'll last for a long time. It's in outstanding condition. All right, let's get our new climate control servo installed. All right, I've got a replacement. This is not a Mercedes hose clamp. Let me see, I might have a genuine Mercedes that I can put back onto the onto one of these hoses, because I threw away one of the hose clamps just because it was all crusty. Aha, there we go. I got a genuine Mercedes hose clamp that we can reinstall on there. Now let's go ahead. We want to plug in our vacuum lines down here. Let me take off our protective cap. There and there. And the yellow one goes here. And the black one goes here. There we go. We'll just set this right down in here. Let's get that connector on there. All right. Okay, we got our hose clamps replaced, got our hoses reconnected, and we're just tightening it down in the back here. And there we go. All right, now let's plug back in our connectors. See if I can get a better view for you guys. Okay, that's sort of a good view. They said we're going to plug in our power connectors, and we might hear our servo go into park mode when we plug it in. There we go. Got that one plugged in. Now let's plug in our vacuum lines. Those just slip in right there. And we'll put in our vacuum line screw. Got to kind of come in. And that screw just holds the vacuum line connection in place. All right, perfect. We have our new servo. That'll last for a long time. All right, so what we want to do now, we want to go in and apply power to the car and take some measurements from our amplifier to make sure the amplifier is sending a, I think it's somewhere between 1 and 5 volts through the servo to control the up and down movement. Now, when I turn on the car, we should hear the servo go into the park position. I'm going to put the camera right here so you guys can hear that. Now, I want you guys to listen. I'm going to go get in the car, and I'm going to put the auxiliary power on, position 2 on the key. You don't have to start it. And I'm going to operate the thumb wheel that controls the climate, and I want you guys to listen to the servo moving up and moving down to show that it operates correctly. All right, I'm going to roll the wheel. It's all the way, I'm cold right now. I'm going to roll it all the way to hot. You hear the servo moving? It's moving all the way to the hot position, and it'll stop in a second. Okay, we have full motion. Now I'm going to roll the wheel back to 65 degrees. Takes about 20 seconds or so to go through the full range of motion. And now I've turned the car off and the servo is parking. And there you go, it's parked. Okay guys, what I've done now, I've taken off the faceplate of the radio so I can remove the security clips that hold it in there. And I've gone ahead and slid out the radio. Now, the reason I'm doing this, I wanted to get behind the center panel because it was a little loose back here and the panel was pushed in just a little bit. And I wanted to reattach the panel to the wood trim. And the way you do that, there's a screw there once you get the radio out, and a screw there. And then you can pull the bottom out and down, and there's little wooden clips. See these little wooden clips? I can tell this has never been out of here because the little wooden clips are still intact. So I was able to get back behind there. I'm not going to pull it back out now. I just disconnected all the switches. Here's our switches right here. Pulled this out, and then I just tightened back up the screws over here on this side. Here we go. This is just to demonstrate what I was doing. This is out of another vehicle. You can see this one does not have the sunroof button. And if we turn it around, there we go. There's these little screws on the back of here that hold the panel in. It was just a little bit loose. And there's your how all those devices are mounted in there. They're attached to this piece of plastic and then kind of bolted onto the onto this wood panel. And you can see they actually left a cutout for the sunroof on this car, but it was a non-sunroof car, so it never got the plastic panel. Anyway, just wanted to show you what I was doing there. And what I'm doing now, guys, there are, let's see, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4. I think there's 4 bulbs back here that let all this light up. When you turn on your headlights, you can see I've unplugged one right there. So I'm replacing these bulbs behind there. Okay, here's the replacement bulbs. These are the same that you find on the 123 or 126. It's Osram, that's upside down, but 2721. It's a 1.2 watt, 12 volt. And we'll show you it working in the car. They're very small. That's what they look like. Okay, I've turned out the light on the camera. You can see I just plugged one into that socket, and now we'll plug it back into the control panel, and we'll show you how it lights up this area. And I need to do the same thing. There's a bulb here, behind here, and right there. So let me go ahead and knock that out. Okay, see how we now have this area lit up? And not sure if you can see it. You can also see, it's hard to tell without all the lights out, but it also, there's little fiber optics that run from that bulb location up to here and light these up. So let me go ahead and knock out the rest of them. Okay, I have all those little bulbs placed behind there. Next, we want to go start replacing bulbs on the gauge cluster. Now, I tested it and I noticed, let's see, these two were still lighting up and fine, but this one over here wasn't. That's your oil pressure, engine temperature, and oil pressure. The clock is still working great. So we've just slowly gone back here and started disconnecting everything. I think we have it disconnected now. And I'm going to pull this out and let's get some fresh bulbs in there. Okay, not too complex back here. You have these are your sockets, your bulb sockets right here that plug in to like your seat belt or your brake pad wear sensor, your glow plugs, your turn signal. That's what these are right here. Actually, I don't think the turn signal is part of that. But let's see, are we missing one down here? Yeah, that's all of them. So we're going to go ahead and replace those. I have spare bulbs for that. And then there's some also on the back of the gauge cluster. Let's get this on the bench and I'll show you. Okay, I don't think this has ever been out of the car. It is amazing, amazing condition. But the other bulbs we want to replace, you can turn that and these pop out here. And those are some more bulbs. So we're going to take all those out and let me get the replacements. We're going to go through and replace all these, this one here. Now, they don't make the rheostat dimmer switches for these cars anymore. That's the dimmer switch, so you can dim and brighten your lights. So you cannot fix these. And guys, these never work after 40 years. They just kind of stop working. But the problem is, you know, I turned it a little bit and it flickered on and off, and then it went off, and we lose our gauge cluster because if these aren't making a good connection, you lose your lights inside your gauge cluster and on your center console. So the fix for that is to solder a little wire from right here to right there. Now, that does disable the dimmer function, but that's really the only solution unless, you know, somehow you find some new old stock 116 dimmer switch, which I don't think those exist anymore. And if they did, they're so old, they're not going to really work correct anyway. So we're going to solder a little wire across here and replace all these bulbs and replace the ones in the car. And guys, you might have also noticed there's a piece of styrofoam right here. That piece of styrofoam is installed from the factory. And the face of it is painted black. But what that is, I guess on some cars you had a temperature readout right there. But on the SDs you did not. So that's just a piece of styrofoam that Mercedes would, they paint the face of it black and push it in there, and it blacks out that area. I always thought that was interesting how they did that at the factory. That's the original piece in there. So let's go ahead and work on these bulbs. Okay, so the replacement bulbs for these, not sure if you can read anything on there. Yeah, it's kind of old, but you replace them with the Osram part number 2821, and these are a 3-watt 12-volt. Now, some people try to go with the 5-watt on like the 123 cars to make them a little brighter. But there's a lot of plastic on that bezel, and the 5-watt will actually start to melt things. So don't upgrade to a 5-watt. It's not an upgrade. Use the 3-watt just like the manufacturer did. So let's replace some of these. And guys, I'm just going to show how to replace one. Pretty simple. You can take that bulb out of its holder there. We'll set our old bulbs over here. And all we're going to do is push in our new bulb. It's as simple as that. Now these are like a spring-loaded, like twist lock. So when you put them in there, you kind of put it in, you line up, there's little tabs here. You line up the tabs that are right here. Push that in, and then you twist it, and it holds itself in there. Easy enough. So I'll go ahead and knock out the rest, and let's solder our piece onto there. Now this one is interesting here. I actually already replaced the bulb. This is one of the small bulbs like you saw on the climate control console, but this actually goes all the way up in here. There we go. And that is what illuminates the gauges when you turn your dimmer switch. And let's see if we can get this one out over here. There we go. And we'll go ahead and take this old one out here. Set it aside. These stab all the way through, and these are what light up your gauges. Okay, there we go. And we'll stick this guy right down in there. And we'll go right back up into there like that, and put our clip back in right here. All right, there we go. Okay guys, you see what I've done here? I have a small jumper wire and we want to solder it to this node right here, or this terminal, and then jump it across and solder it to this terminal. Now all I'm going to do is melt the existing solder that's on there. I'll add a little right there and then just press our little jumper wire into it, and then that will, when you turn on your headlights, it will make the gauge cluster go to full bright. And full bright is what you run anyway on these cars. You really don't ever want to dim them because it's not very bright to start with. So let's go ahead and fix that. There we go. Boom. Perfect. All right. So there we go, guys. See if you can see that. What we've done is those are the original lines, and we've jumpered in those two lines together. So let's go test it out. Okay, it also looks like our rubber gasket that goes around the gauge cluster and kind of holds it in there. Just due to age, it was split right there. And guys, super glue works amazing with rubber. I don't know why it sticks to rubber so well, but I just put a bead right along the back and I've reattached it so that brake doesn't matter. So let's go ahead and get this back in the car and check out all our lights. Okay guys, we have everything back together. Got my fingerprints all over everything, but that's okay. Let's turn out the light and do one final test. Beautiful gauge cluster. All lit up just like it's supposed to be. Let me turn the key. Our radio light lights up. Our shifter light. Our hazard switch. All of our accessory control lights up here are lit up correctly. And we can see up here we have glow plugs. All our lights light up. There's our high beam light right there. And we got new blinker lights. And let me turn that off there. And let's do the hazard. Guys, that's it for this video. Great climate control servos working with the amplifier, all of our bulbs, lights on the interior climate control. And I might have made that look easy in the video, guys, but that's tough work. These, the 116 is, you know, the better quality, the better built vehicle than the 123 or the 126. It's also a little more difficult to work on, a little more fragile once you get all the little pieces apart. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next time. Take care.